morning. Welcome, everybody. Happy Saturday, the final chapter here in Think and Grow Rich in the study on the entrepreneur's journey. This is Paul Martinelli. We're going to get started here, in about, looks like 3 minutes or so. Again, Think and Grow Rich, you can grab this on Amazon, or somebody's going to put a link to my website online. Also, I got some teaching notes today that I'm going to be teaching from. If you'd like a copy of those, you can go to my website, and someone from my staff will get you a copy of those. Just fill out the form for information, and we'll send these over to you. We are on the epilogue, the 6 Ghosts of Fear. This is how to outwit the 6 Ghosts of Fear. Final chapter on page 257, Think and Grow Rich. Hope you have enjoyed this study. I've enjoyed doing it with you. It's been great. I've been doing this probably once a year, taking chapter by chapter and going all the way through. I want to thank my friend Paul Sheely, who has contributed to this study as well as my whole team. My team has just been phenomenal. Holly and Megan, Kiona, Rachel, just great to have them helping me put all this together. So we're going to get started here just in about 2 more minutes. So you got some time. Go ahead and grab your copy of the book. We're going to the epilogue, How to Outwit the 6 Ghosts of Fear. I love this chapter, but I love every chapter of the book. And if you've made it, if you've listened to all of these, let me know in the comments. I would love to see how many of you have actually gone through the entire study. Most people don't. Most people will pick up, a chapter or 2 or 3 or 4, and that's great. But it says something about your dedication. It says something about your commitment. If you were able to say, you know what, I'm going to do this whole study. Maybe you didn't catch them all live. Maybe you've caught them on the YouTube channel. And again, all of these are now moved over to my YouTube channel. I would love for you to subscribe. Lots of free content there. More free content coming next week, and for probably the next 10 weeks, I'm going to be teaching through the filter of my fully resourced program. So I'll be doing some teaching, playing some clips. I also have a special guest coming up in June as well that I want you to meet. That's going to help you. So we'll get started here in about 1 more minute. Thank you to Andy Hall. Thank you to all of our team ambassadors. For all of you who comment on the Empowered Living page, who work on committees, who welcome people, who support people, who work the sunrise every morning, literally at sunrise. For those of you who end the day with people on our Candle of Hope, thank you. Michonne Henniger, who runs all of our children program. Regina Bryan for leading our Empowered Women program. Thank you. You do so much great work, and you support so many people. We're just honored and blessed to have you, as part of this community. So here we are. We're at 9:30. Let's just jump right on. And again, thank you. I've had literally hundreds of messages, from text messages, email, Facebook messages, comments from people who have enjoyed this study. And thank you for taking the time for doing that. Thank you for supporting the products that are sold on my website and the programs. Many of you have joined my mastermind groups. We have one more, I think we have 2 open seats in June, and then that's it. That's the last mastermind group that we're going to do of that kind for this year. And many of you have also jumped into the fully resourced mentorship program, the 6-month or the 12-month. And if you've done that, thank you as well. And again, thank you to my team, Holly Lane Smith, Megan, Kiona, Rachel, and really, a guy who's behind the scenes that most people never get to see until they're ready to make a decision, Rick Riperton. Rick is probably the most dedicated student to my work that I know. He has committed himself to just pouring into the teaching that I do. He's applied it into his life. His results are absolutely amazing. And he is just a dream fighter, man. He just fights for people's dreams every single day. He gets on the phone every single day and spends, 8 to 10 hours. He must be the hardest working guy I know. And his whole purpose is to help people make a decision and to step over their fear to do it. And, for those of you who've been around me long enough, you know that I believe that sales is probably the most integrous thing you can do to help people make a decision for their lives in an area that they should be making, but they're just uncertain, and they just lack a little bit of certainty, and they're fearful, and they're caught in indecision. And that's what we're going to talk about in this chapter a lot. Let's jump in. Right on line 1 on page 257, he says, take inventory of yourself. In about midway through the book, this book comes and shifts gears, doesn't it, for an entrepreneur? It begins to ask you to really check yourself, to go back and examine your thinking. I hope you've taken the time to do that. If this is your first time through the book, remember, Napoleon Hill says you haven't read the book once until you read the book 3 times. This is my copy of the book that Patrick Hayes gave to me, my original copy. Now, when he gave it to me, it was brand new. It didn't look like this. It wasn't all beat up. But you can see every single page. There's not a section of this book that isn't highlighted, dog-eared, has notes. I've been studying this book for years. And when I started studying the book, again, I was a high school dropout, and I was filled with fear. There was not a decision that I made in my life that wasn't either driven by fear or driven by obligation. And it was the application of what I learned, of what I was mentored through in this book, that literally changed the trajectory of my life. And I hope that it's doing it for you. But I had a mentor who was relentless when it came time to doing the exercises, to doing the work. Patrick would not let me slip. He wouldn't meet with me to go forward in the book unless I had done exactly what Napoleon Hill had asked me to do. So take inventory of yourself. He says, as you read this closing chapter and find out how many of the ghosts are standing in your way before you can put any portion of this philosophy into successful use, your mind must be prepared to receive it. He says that right in the preface of the book, in the introduction of the book. He said you have to be willing and your mind must be prepared. The preparation, he says, is not difficult. It begins with study, analysis, and understanding of the 3 enemies which you shall have to clear out. Now, he says, these are indecision, doubt, and fear. The 6th sense will never function while these 3 negatives, or any of them, remain in your mind. See, when fear enters into our mind, logic leaves. And without question, this is, as I've said all along, this is a you and you deal. You have to do this yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. That's why we have a community here in the Empowered Living community. That's why we have mastermind groups. That's why we have the Fully Resourced Mentorship Program. This is, I've often said, taking yourself on, really going through personal transformation, challenging your limiting beliefs and breaking through those, examining your beliefs, and then breaking the attachments to those beliefs that you find are not your truth and do not serve you, that you didn't intentionally decide to live your life by. It's just the hardest but yet easiest thing to do. It's easy if you think about it. It doesn't require any physical labor, but yet it's the hardest work you'll do because you have to really take yourself on. He says here that the 6th sense will never function while these 3 negatives or any of them remain in your mind. Why is that? Well, the 6th sense is our intuition. And if we understand what our intuition, I think Wayne Dyer nailed it. He said that prayer is when we speak to God. Intuition is when God speaks to us. Intuition is a spiritual gift. It's our ability to tune into every single frequency in the universe. It's tied to God's promise that we have dominion over all things. What that means is dominion over all the frequencies of thought that we have. We have dominion over everything in our lives. And we have the ability to tune into the frequency, the calibrated frequency of vibration of every energetical field. And we have the ability to be the dominant energy. to rule over that, to have authority over. And that part of us, the spiritual part of us, which is anchored in our subconscious mind. Remember, the conscious mind is our thinking mind, our subconscious mind is our emotional mind, but our emotional mind is what the early Greeks referred to as our heart of heart. It's our sanctum sanctorum. It is where God dwelleth within. Seek first the kingdom within you. This is the part that means. It's our subconscious mind, in our heart of hearts, in where we truly believe. It's our spiritual center. And he's saying that the sixth sense will never function if indecision, fear, doubt, worry, any of these negative emotions are there. Why? Because those negative emotions are not perfect. They're imperfect. And spirit can't be present where there's imperfection. He says indecision, line 10, indecision is the seedling of fear. It's the seedling of fear. Now, that's an interesting thing. Because he's not saying it's a seed of fear. He's saying it's a seedling of fear. There's a difference. See, a seedling can be transplanted. A seedling's already grown. A seedling's broken the ground. A seed has potential. A seed has potential to grow. You know, the acorn has the potential to become an oak tree. But once it's a seedling, it's rooted. Those roots could be dug up and it could be replanted and survive. It's a seedling. It's fairly strong. And so when indecision is a seedling of fear. It holds fear in place. It's rooted inside you. Remember this as you read. Indecision crystallizes into doubt. The two blend to become fear. The blending process often is slow. This is one reason why these three enemies are so dangerous. They germinate and grow without their presence being observed. The alchemy of fear is what he's saying here. He's saying the alchemy of fear is 1 part indecision, 1 part doubt equals fear. And I think it's important here because he's talking about one of the universal laws. And in this case, we can be grateful for it. Very grateful that our indecision and in fear does manifest slowly. So it's not like when we have one negative doubt that instantly that negative doubt or that negative thought, manifests in form. He says it germinates. That tells us it's governed by the law of gender. The law of gender is the law of incubation, right? It tells us that there's an incubation and gestation period for all things. So it takes time over time. That is both, as the Bible says, today I lay before you both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because, if you're aware that you catch yourself, in negative thinking, happens to me all the time. I could be caught up in a conversation and before I know it, I realize, hold on, what am I doing? I am going down the wrong, why am I defaulting to this? I've often found the quickest way to break that is move right to gratitude. Just move right to gratitude. Stop complaining about something and be grateful for something. It's a great shift of energy. But it's also a curse because if you're unaware that you're even doing it, if you lack the awareness that you're doing it, then this does just germinate and grow, and those roots become deeper and deeper, and it becomes harder to change. Let's go over to page 258. Well, you know what? Before I do that, I want to take a look just at this idea of indecision. I've got teaching notes on this. Again, if you'd like a copy of these teaching notes for this chapter, for this particular piece, because I was thinking about indecision, and so I spent a little bit of time, and I thought into indecision, why we do it, and how do we break it. And so just stay with me and let me know what you think. If you'd like a copy of these notes, if you'd like to be able to use them, if we know with your clients, if you're teaching, you'd like to use this particular piece, just go to the link below and jump in, and I'll be glad to share them with you. Indecision stems from our inability, from our inability to know that what we're going to do is the right thing. So that's what indecision is sparked from, right? So we fear making mistakes. We fear looking foolish. We wonder, what will people think of me? What if I lose and things don't work out? And then all of our focus goes on to the consequences of failure, right? And we've been programmed from a very early age that we need to know all the answers. You know, you need to know the hows before you make a decision. We were told that you have to be 100% sure. And if you think about it, we may think that decisiveness would be the opposite of indecision. But it really isn't the opposite of indecision, because most people who've developed the skill set to be decisive. Now, if we go back to the chapter on decision, what does Hill tell us? He says that successful people have developed a habit around making decisions, right? So decision making is a skill set. So if we look at indecision, like those who are indecisive and those who are decisive, they really aren't opposites, because if at some level they are, but at another higher degree of truth they aren't, because most people who are decisive have developed the skill and the knowledge and the awareness to make a decision when they don't know how. See, they're not making decisions because they have the answers, because they know that what they're going to do is right. What they've done is they've developed the ability to make a decision without the requirement of being right, without the requirement of knowing how to do it. Decisiveness is the ability to decide when we are uncertain and still make it. Indecision is our inability to make a decision when we're uncertain. The difference, if you think about it, is really a contrast in behavior. And I've said all along, what drives behavior? If both people, the decisive person and the indecisive person, lack the awareness of the future outcome, if neither one of them are guaranteed a result, if both of them are making decisions without knowing exactly how it's going to work out, then you have to look at, if one person's able to move forward in that decision, what causes that forward movement? What causes that behavior? Well, all through this study, what have we said? We said the belief drives that behavior. So it's the fear of failure, the fear of the unknown, that invites indecision. And we invite it in first in our mind, that's our thinking. We invite it in our emotions, that's our feelings. We invite it into our action, that's our behavior. And we see the full expression of this fear energy. Thoughts drive emotions, emotions then drive behavior. And when we're experiencing fear at that level, intellectually, emotionally, behaviorally, spiritually, intellectually, physically, well, when we're in that depth of fear, fear enters the mind, logic leaves. Logic leaves. If we look at the entire idea here for a moment of decision making, and if we really think logically about it for a moment, there would be no need for us to make a decision, to cut away options. That's what decision is, right? Incision is when we cut in. Decision is when we cut away, right? We've talked about that. There would be no need for us, if we knew exactly what to do, decisions are required precisely because the outcome is not known, because the outcome is not predictable, because we lack the clarity. We have to make a choice, a tough choice to be able to cut away. And so what's the difference between someone who's decisive and indecisive? What are the things that the decisive person has that allows them to make these decisions and not be caught in fear? How have they been able to break the fear cycle? And I thought about this, and I thought there's four things, right? And again, if you want these teaching notes, just click on the link below, go to my website, fill out a form, and someone from my team will reach out to you and we'll get you a copy of these. The first is attachment. I think that's the difference between people who are decisive and indecisive. The decisive person is unattached. Go to page 164 real quick, okay? This is on the chapter on decision. We're on 164, line 27. And he says, the majority of people who fail to accumulate money sufficient for their needs are generally easily influenced by the opinions of others. They permit the newspapers and the gossiping neighbors to do their thinking for them. Opinions are the cheapest commodities on earth. Everyone has a flock of opinions ready to be wished upon anyone who will accept them. And if you are influenced by the opinions of other people when you reach decisions, you will not succeed in any undertaking, let alone that of transmuting your own desire into money. You see, we are so attached to what other people think of us. We become so attached to trying to please other people. So when it comes to decision making, we have to break that attachment. The Buddhist religion says that attachments, it's our attachments, is the source of all suffering. The attachments to our habits, the attachments to thinking patterns, the attachments to negative behavior, the attachments to beliefs that don't serve us, that we didn't choose, that were programmed into us even before the age of reason. Another difference between the decisive and indecisive is what they focus on. We tend to see what we aim for, right? That's the way our vision works. The way our vision works is, it blurs everything out. We actually delete information when our mind is given a directive to focus on one thing. Many of you are familiar of the awareness exercise where they take two teams, a team of men in white shirts and men in black shirts, and they each have a ball. And you, the viewer, are asked to watch how many times the team in black passes the ball to each other, while the white team is also passing the ball to their team, and it's interacted. And all of our focus goes to watching those in the black shirts pass the ball. And at the end of the exercise, you're asked how many times did they pass the ball? And many people will get it right, that it's 15 times. But the second question is, how many of you saw the gorilla walk through? And most people miss that there's actually, in the middle of all of that there's a person who's in a gorilla suit who walks into the middle of the game, stops, pats on his chest, and walks right away. And you can't believe that it even happened. But see, that's the way our focus, that's the way our eyesight works, is we delete information once we're given a directive. So we tend to aim we tend to focus on that which we aim for. And anytime we take our focus off our chief aim in life, anytime we take our focus off of our dream, we then begin to see all the reasons why something won't work. And our attention drives our intention. We end up actually intentionally creating that which we do not want because we've misplaced our attention, our focus. This is what Emerson said. He said, where our focus goes, our energy flows. The decisive person understands the risks involved. They know that the decision may not work out for them. They don't have any knowledge that the person with indecision is facing, but the desire for forward movement in the person who's decisive outweighs the risks of standing still, waiting for something outside of them that they can never control. You can't control the economy. You can't control what other people do. Hell, it's a full-time job changing you, let alone trying to change everybody else. And lastly, the decisive person has an awareness of their resources. They operate from a belief that they are fully resourced. They know, okay, I don't have all the answers. I don't know what's going to happen here. I can't predict the outcome here. But what I do know is I know that I've been gifted by God the resources within me to overcome any obstacle. Now, I may not have a full understanding of those resources. I may need to improve and develop those resources, but those resources are within me. And the person who's decisive has that level of belief. And that level of belief fortifies their faith. They understand that if I have been sourced with the dream, then I have been resourced from the source to be able to manifest it. And it's that level of belief that drives their behavior to move forward. They've invested time to study, to contemplate, who and whose they are. They've operate from a certainty that they are connected with God, God, the grand overall designer. And again, that level of knowledge, that they're not going it alone, that they're not acting on their idea. The dream you have, think about the dream you have right now. Think about the goal that you might have. Chances are you didn't have that dream 10 years ago. You didn't have that goal 20 years ago. So my question is where did it come from? And where was it before you had it? I'm going to suggest that the dream you have is a thought. That thought is energy. Energy can't be created or destroyed, so it had to be here somewhere. It just wasn't on the physical plane or the intellectual plane. It was in the spiritual plane. It was in the mind of God. And through this beautiful, lawful expression of creation, you and I, we create through law. There are laws that govern the creation. There's laws that govern everything in the universe. Everything in the universe operates by law. Do you think the sun rises in the east and sets in the west? Do you think that the tides are governed by the law of rhythm? Do you think that the law of gestation, how every baby is birthed, conceived, grows in the womb? Do you think everything in the universe, do you think the entire solar system that operates by law, do you think everything in the universe operates by law but you? You operate by law. And when we begin to understand these laws and we begin to and begin to apply them in our life, everything begins to change. And so a person who understands that, who believes that and understands, hold it, my idea, my dream didn't come from me. It has come through me. That I've actually tapped into the mind of God. And if we look at how does God create? Well, go out and look. Go out tonight and look up. Go out right now and look. God creates perfectly and abundantly. You couldn't count the leaves on one tree. You couldn't eat the oranges on one tree. Everything that God creates, everything that comes from God. Look at the universe. It's continually expanding. That's the spiritual expression. You've heard me say it 1,000 times in the study. Spirit is always for fuller expression and fuller expansion. Many people go through life ignorant of this, lacking this understanding, lacking of the resources within them. Let's go to page 85. Real quick here. Page 85. Yep. Right here on specialized knowledge, line 24. He says, an educated person is a person who's so developed the faculties of the mind that they may acquire anything they want or its equivalent without violating the law or rights of other people. See, most people have no awareness of the resources he's talking about. None. Most people understand their five senses, but if you sat a really educated person down and said, explain to me, what are the 6 intellectual faculties? What's the faculty of mind that Edison used, Ford used, Rockefeller used? What is it? What are these intellectual faculties? At most they'd be guessing. And it's no wonder if you don't understand the laws of your being, if you lack an awareness of the levels of awareness, if you lack an understanding of these faculties, well, of course you're going to be at a disadvantage. Time after time, example after example, chapter after chapter in this book, in this study, he's talked about laws and faculties right from the beginning. Go to page 29. We'll go right to the beginning here. Page 29, line 342. He says, he should have told us that our brains become magnetized with the dominating thoughts which we hold in our minds, and by means with which most men are not familiar, these magnets attract to us. He's talking about the law of vibration, the secondary law here of attraction. The people, the circumstances of life with harmonize with the nature of our dominating thoughts. He should have told us that before we can accumulate riches in great abundance, we must magnetize our minds with intense desire for riches. That we must become money conscious until desire for money drives us to create definite plans for acquiring it. Most people have no awareness of the 7 laws of creation. And therefore, they live their life by default. Now, every once in a while, we get lucky and we happen to be in harmony with the laws. We call that an unconscious competent. And you'll see somebody who, gets quote unquote lucky. Lucky is really just a word that we developed to describe that somebody's lack of conscious awareness to repeat the behavior again and again. What I'm talking about is, can you apply yourself to a course of study for a sustained period of time and walk that out in your life so that you can make the unconscious conscious? Can you slow down long enough? It's one of the first things. I mean, when we do the mastermind groups here at my home, we spend the first 2 days on just looking at how we think, how we make decisions. We analyze how we look at our lives. We look at key decisions in our lives and we look at what was necessary for us to make that decision. We make the unconscious conscious because success leaves clues. So of course most people remain trapped in indecision. Of course they're filled with fear. Of course their efforts are paralyzed. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to your dream. You owe it to your family to really take a look at this. If you haven't, if it's not my program, get into a program that's going to teach you the understanding of these laws. It's going to teach you about you. That's going to guide you to the kingdom within you so that you can, in a very predictable way, apply this understanding to your purpose. James Allen said that until your thought is linked with purpose, there's no intelligent accomplishment. Look, it's not going to make a big difference in my life whether you join one of my programs or not. I'm going to do okay. I'm going to do okay. But it's going to make a major difference in your life. The application of just one understanding can change the trajectory of everything. Just one shift in your perception. The truth really is that when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. And when we change the way we look at our potential, the way that we look at how we create, when we change the way we look at our beliefs are based on our evaluation of things. And frequently, if we'll reevaluate those things, our beliefs and consideration of those beliefs will change. I believed for years that because, I lacked a formal education, I could never get rich. That was beat into my brain over and over and over and over again by people in authority. Teachers, counselors, principals, grandparents, brothers, parents, parents of my friends. Oh, you got to get an education or you'll amount to anything. Got to get an education or you won't amount to anything. You got to get a diploma or you got to go to college. You're never going to make it. And I believed that. Now look, their intent wasn't to harm me. But it held me back, that belief. Because not everybody does go to college. Not everybody's great at learning academically the way that we're taught. I changed my belief from that I was dumb and stupid to this, that I had poor teachers who didn't understand how to teach me. Nobody trained them. Nobody trained them how to teach a child from an abusive home who's a kinetic learner, who stutters, who has a poor self-image, who's scared to death to go home, who when they get home doesn't have a parent who reads with them or has any involvement in their life, could care less. They weren't taught how to teach that student, how to reach that student. And even if they were, for the love of God, they got 30 other kids. They don't have time. And see, by changing my belief, it wasn't that I was dumb and stupid. It's just that I didn't have parents or teachers or people in my life who understood how to reach me. And because they couldn't reach me, I'm one of those that slipped through the cracks. And so I failed out of a school system where most kids graduate. So does that mean that the rest of my life is doomed? If you listen to them, it would. And I did listen to them. You know where it landed me? On top of a roof making minimum wage. Hating my life. Knowing that there was more, but giving up and sacrificing and settling for a lot less. Until an angel came into my life and shared with me what I'm sharing with you. He says there's 6 basic fears. We're on line 258. Fear of poverty, criticism, health, loss of love, old age, and death. Line 43. Fears are nothing more than states of mind. One state of mind is subject to control and direction. One state of mind is subject to control and direction. You can control and direct it, or you can allow somebody else. You can tune into CNN, constant negative news. And I don't mean to beat up on CNN. I don't know that Fox is any better. Any of them are any better. Everybody seems to have an agenda today. It's so sad. I spent a little bit of time this weekend going through social media. It's been a long time since I've taken the time to just kind of read through. And I see people who I know who are doing really well in their lives, better than they've ever done, who are just wounded and victimized and hurt. And so why are you talking about on social media? And they make passive aggressive, comments and posts and they're hurt by this and they're hurt by that and this isn't fair and that needs to change. Stop. Why are you putting your focus there? You're doing better than you ever did in your life. Look at your life 5 years ago. Where would you have been? Where were you 5 years ago? And look at where you are right now. Be grateful for where you are. Why would you just go onto social media and just perpetuate just negative energy at all? Why would you want to be the source of that? And it's because of ignorance. And many of these people are smart people. They're just ignorant. They lack awareness. They don't even know that they're doing it. And then they wonder when hard times show up, why? We create them. Man can create nothing which he does not first conceive in the form of impulsive thought. What you're forming in your mind, you are creating. All you do is create. That's all you do. You're made in the image of God. God's the creator. And you create the exact same way that God did. In the beginning, there was nothing. So in a field of nothingness, it's nothing but chaos. There's no order. And God, in the beginning was the Word was made flesh. God sees it. He designs in his mind. He speaks forward. He decrees a thing, and the universe is created. That's how you do. You create from chaos out of your life. You look at the chaos of your life. You look at things that you do not want, things that you want to change. You build an image of what you do want, and then you declare it. You begin to speak life into it. That's the creative process. And then you act on that in a harmonious way with the laws of creation. Man can create nothing which he does not first conceive in the form of impulsive thought. Everything is created twice. Everything. The following statement comes, following this statement comes another of still greater importance, namely, man's thought impulses begin immediately to translate themselves into their physical equivalent, whether those thoughts are voluntary or involuntary. What's he talking about? He's talking here about the law of perpetual transmutation of energy. That energy is always moving to form, through form, back to form. Energy is in a constant state of transmutation, and energy always returns to its source of origination. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Thought impulses, which are picked up through the ether by mere chance, thoughts which have been released by other minds, may determine one's financial, business, professional, and social destiny, just as they do the impulses of thought that one creates with intent and design. Be careful who you're around. Be careful what you let in. This is what James Allen said. He said, take the helm of thought. Stand guard at the threshold of the gateway to your thoughts. We are here laying the foundation for the presentation of a fact of great importance to the person who does not understand why some people appear to be quote unquote lucky while others of equal or greater ability, training, experience, and brain, the statement of every human being has the ability to completely control his own mind. With this control, obviously, every person may open his mind to the tramp thought impulses which are being released by other brains, or they can close the door tightly and admit only the thought impulses of your choice. I wasted years of my life. Tuning into other people's BS. Belief systems, right? You know, the language of my circle of friends was, it's not fair, the system's rigged, we're just pawns in the game. Total victimhood, total blame. What's he say? He says, this fact may be explained by the statement that every human being has the ability to completely control his or her own mind. And with this control, obviously, every person may open up his or her mind to the tramp thought impulses which are being released by other brains, negative stuff, or close that door tightly and admit only the thought impulses of his own choice. It's your choice. You have to participate in it at some level. Nature has endowed man with absolute control over but one thing, and that is thought. Boy, is this so true. I mean, you read the book Man's Search for Meaning, and what did Frankl say? He said that they could take everything. They could dehumanize us in every way. They could torture us. They could beat us. They could starve us. But what they couldn't take away was our ability to choose our own attitude. That's what he talks about. He says somewhere he says there, somewhere between, stimulus and response, he says there's a place. And that place is man's greatest freedom. That gap. And in that gap between stimulus and how we respond is your greatest power. It's the ability for you to choose what you're going to think in that moment. And I see people who live in hundreds of thousands of dollars homes, and kids go to private school, and they've got nice cars and great educations and opportunity everywhere, and friends everywhere, and they live in a country where you get free vaccine, and they go on social media and they complain and gripe, and this isn't fair and that's not fair and this isn't right, and they keep score against everybody else, and it's a judgment game. We should just stop and turn on the news and just spend a couple of minutes and look at what's going on in India today. And move from that to gratitude. That'll interrupt that pattern. And then stop and say, you know what? In the big, look at everything, how grateful I am. How blessed I am. Has everything gone my way? No. Have I been hurt? Yeah. Have problems come? Sure. But in the big picture, thank you, God. Thank you. And why not project that out into social media? Why not put that out into the ether? Well, because maybe that doesn't get as many likes and comments, and maybe you don't get as much attention, and the pity party doesn't come for you. And it's sad. It's just a low level of awareness. And this is by smart people. And we don't even know we're doing it because everybody seems to be doing it. And we get caught up in it. This is why I designed the mastermind groups. Small group, big talk. Small group, big talk. We don't have big talk anymore. We don't have big talk. Let's look at this. Nature has endowed man with absolute control over but one thing, and that is thought. This fact, coupled with the additional fact that everything which man creates begins in the form of thought, leads one very near to the principle by which fear may be mastered. You see, I didn't know this. I didn't know. Patrick said, I would go into Patrick and I'd complain. This employee did this wrong. This employee was unfair to me, or cheated the system, or lied, or stole something from an account. I had that happen a couple of times in 18 years. Or this client, said that they were going to pay me and they didn't pay me. Or I'm having a tough time here. I just lost this account. Well, I go in, whatever the complaint du jour, the pity party for Paul. And Patrick would listen and he'd look at me and say, well, why are you creating that? I said, what do you mean? I didn't create this. This is them. He said, but in all of it, the only thing that's consistent, Paul, is you. What are you doing that's bringing that into your life? Boom. See, if you didn't know that, how would you know? Imagine if you were poor. Just imagine if you were, think of the poorest community in your city right now. Think of that area. And imagine yourself being a 7-year-old little boy or little girl. Maybe you're in a broken home. Chances are, if it's a neighborhood filled with poverty, there's probably violence. It's probably unsafe. How would you learn? How would you learn that you could be, do, or have anything? Imagine if you just lacked the awareness. Imagine now that you're 7 years old, and now all of a sudden you're 14 years old or 15 years old, and now you're going into high school, and you're completely unaware. And you think everything that happens has happened to you, and against you. Not for you. How would you learn? Imagine if your whole life you were programmed that the game was fixed, that you were a victim, that you'll never get ahead, no matter how hard you try. Even when you work hard and you try and you do the good work and you really make it, there's a whole conspiracy where people are just waiting to tear you down. Imagine if you were programmed to believe that. How would you ever break free? I think it's through divine intervention. It's why I teach this for free. I know there's lots of people, thousands of people. There's been probably hundreds of thousands of people that have gone through all of my Think and Grow Rich programs that I've taught for free. And I do it for free because I know some people will buy the programs when I sell them. But I also know that there's so many people who will never be able to buy the program. They're lucky just to be able to catch it on a computer or on somebody's phone. If you go down, you look at line 75 on 259, he says, the people of America began to think in poverty following the Wall Street crash. Slowly but surely, the mass thought was crystallized into physical equivalent, which was known as a depression. This had to happen. It was a conformity to the laws of nature. In other words, the collective consciousness. I teach in the fully resourced program about the 7 levels of awareness, and I take a deep dive in it. And the second lowest level is mass consciousness. This is where you just kind of follow the crowd, just kind of follow the crowd. No real thinking. We just do what everybody else is doing. If you think about it, 10% of the world's population, 10% earn more than the 90 bottom percent. But you know what? I was in the bottom 90%. And once I learned that I didn't have to be, once I learned that I could change, everything changed. See, nothing was my fault, but everything was my responsibility. That's a big, it may not be, see, it wasn't my fault that I was, that I have a stuttering problem. It wasn't my fault that I grew up in an abusive home. It wasn't my fault that, I may have been learning disabled. None of that was my fault. But at a certain point in life, it became my responsibility. I had to participate in my own growth. I had to accept the fact that no one was going to do it. There was no one who was going to come and save me, and that you couldn't tax the rich enough to help me. if I wanted to change my life, I had to change my life. And that's big. I had to go beyond just motivated. I was motivated. I was cleaning toilets. I mean, I had ambition. I had to go beyond vision boards. I had a dream. I had to change my programming. I had to expand my awareness. I had to deepen my understanding. I had to be accountable for the application of my actions, for what I knew. Was I going to apply what I knew, or was I just going to be kind of entertained by it? We'll bring this in for a landing on page 260. This is the fear of poverty. And I want you, we've only got 10 minutes. I want you to go from line 79. I want you to go all the way to line 137. I want you to read it again and again and again and again. Because of all of the fears, poverty is the big one. I've committed my life to helping people break free from the fear of money, to create a different relationship with money. He says there can be no compromise between poverty and riches. The two roads that lead to poverty and riches travel in opposite directions. If you want riches, you must refuse to accept any circumstance that leads towards poverty. The starting point of the path that leads to riches is desire. In chapter 1, you receive full instructions for the proper use of desire. In this chapter on fear, you have to complete the instructions on preparing your mind for desire. Here then is the place to give yourself a challenge which will definitely determine how much of this philosophy you've absorbed. Here is the point at which you can turn prophet and foreteller to accurately, and then to foretell accurately what the future holds in store for you. If after reading this chapter you are willing to accept poverty, you may as well make up your mind to receive poverty. This is one decision you can't avoid. See, I had to stop demonizing the rich. I had to stop saying, well, money isn't everything. Nobody ever said money was everything. That's just one of the way that we kind of virtue single, right? Well, money isn't everything. Yeah, well, it's not everything. But right now in India, some money could buy some oxygen tanks. In other parts of the world, some money right now could buy clean water. In parts of the world right now, money can put food on the table. In parts of the world right now, right where you live, money can be an intervention to help rescue a kid. I did a seminar one time where I asked all the participants to just imagine if they had made $1 million. And for most people, mortgage payment of maybe $500,000 or less. And so now your mortgage is paid off. How many of you would give money away? And everybody's hand goes up. Everybody's hand goes up. And so I say, so where would you give? And, cancer cures, heart, kids, pets, housing, education, the arts, right? Social justice, the saving the environment. And we went on and on in that room. I could have kept going for hours. And I just looked at them and I said, the world needs you rich. This is a room full of really good people that lack the awareness that they could have that. Every single one of you could have it, and you could have it. You could create it. You don't have to wait for somebody to give it to you. Right now, you can make a decision. What would you do? What would you do if you had an extra $1 million today? Would you give some of it away? And if you would, where would you do your good work? Who would you serve? We know what bad people do with money. What if you got rich? What if everybody right now, there's 2,500 people watching. What if all of us decided to get rich and just We all just said 10% for the rest of our lives. We could solve a lot of today's problems. Let's go over to page 294. Please make sure you read that section on poverty. Read it again and again and again and again. You need to change your relationship with money, my friend. If you're not there yet, you need to change your relationship with money. You know, I had so many, you know, I was claiming I wanted to be rich, and yet I was demonizing the rich. I had these competing commitments that I really wanted wealth, but then, you know, money isn't everything. But then in my mind, it was the only thing. We got to really change our relationship with money. Again, I would love to spend some time with you. I would love to have you just bet on yourself for a little bit and just give yourself a really fair shot. And, you know, it's not sexy or trendy in the starting point where you're just watching a video course for 6 or 7 hours and you're going through it with a workbook and you're doing exercises in your living room. But that's where transformation can start for you. Right there in your living room, right there at your desk, in 5 or 10 minutes a day, just marinating in an idea that expands your awareness and understanding of your potential and how to apply the laws of your being. He says, in parting, I would remind you that life is a checkerboard and the player opposite you is time. If you hesitate before moving or neglect to move promptly, your men will be wiped off the board by time. You are playing against a partner who will not tolerate indecision. Previously, you may have had a logical excuse for not having forced life to come through with whatever you asked, but that alibi is now obsolete. Because you are in possession of the master key. You have awareness that unlocks the door of life's bountiful riches. The master key is intangible, but it is powerful. It's the privilege of creating in your own mind a burning desire for definite form of riches. There is no penalty for the use of the key, but there is a price you must pay if you do not use the key. The price is failure. There is a reward of stupendous proportions if you put the key to use. It's the satisfaction that comes to all who conquer self and force life to pay whatever is asked. The reward is worthy of your effort. Will you make the start and be convinced? If we are related in the immortal Emerson, we shall meet. In closing, may I borrow his thought and say, if we are related, we've met through these pages. I want to just thank everybody who's participated in this study. It's been a great honor to be able to come and spend Saturday mornings with you and have a couple of thousand people watch it live and thousands watch it on replay. Thank you so much for supporting me, my message, my work. Thank you again to my team, Holly, Megan, Kiona, Rachel, Rick, Riperton. Again, every day this guy fights for people's dreams. If you'd like a copy of the teaching notes, make sure you go to the link below. If you're not part, I've got 2 seats left for my June mastermind. I'd love to have you. If you're not part of the fully resourced program, you owe it to yourself to at least look at it. If you've watched any portion of this, then I know there's a part of you that's seeking truth, your truth. I think this program will help you find it. God bless. Be well. Happy Mother's Day. Bye-bye.